Hey, welcome to 1500ESPN.com. I'm Derek Wetmore, and this is Andrew Kramer. We're out at TCF Bank Stadium, where actually it just started snowing on and off a little bit. But the Vikings just got done beating the Jets in overtime, 30-24. Vikings moved to 6-7 on the season. A game that they counted on their offense to really keep them going. The offense answered the bell, specifically Teddy Bridgewater. We'll talk about him on this video. We'll also talk about kind of the Vikings' poorest defense, both in stopping the run and in trying to stop former Vikings standout Percy Harvin. Finally, we'll get to some injury updates. If you enjoy any of the inside analysis on this video, be sure to check out the Purple Podcast, which we'll be recording in a little while. It'll talk about all this stuff, Teddy Bridgewater, the Vikings defense, where they go from here, in greater depth, in greater detail. So, Andrew, we'll start off with the quarterback, though, because Mike Zimmer said after the game, the next step for Teddy Bridgewater in the progression is to take over this team. This is Bridgewater's franchise. What did you see from Teddy on Sunday that impressed you and allowed the Vikings to win?
Well, there's not much new with Teddy Bridgewater here, but he's hitting the throws that basically the Vikings keep championing and saying that we're seeing these things in practice. Right. We just aren't seeing them carry over into games. It might scare you a little bit because I heard the same words come out of their mouths about Christian Ponder, but now Teddy is actually showing that on the field with fourth quarter comebacks. He's now throwing that 87-yard screen pass. He checked into that on 3rd and 5. He recognized a coverage. They were basically sending 7 guys after him, leaving 4 guys in man coverage, so no safety help. There were no zones back there. Teddy recognized that, checked into that screen pass that ended up in a Jarius Wright 87-yard score that all he had to do was break 1 tackle to get back there. What I'm seeing out of Teddy now is the accuracy coming to fruition. It's something that we really didn't see in the previous few games. He's completing now 71% of his passes in his last 2 starts. I mean, that's a heck of a rate for any quarterback, let alone a rookie. Yeah. And this is a situation now where they're not surprised. The organization's not surprised. He's making those checks and making those calls. And we shouldn't be either. We saw him do that against the Washington Redskins, where he checked at the line into a 2-point conversion play that netted them a 3-point lead and eventually got them a 29-26 win. So he's done these things before. Now he's doing them more consistently, more often, and he's really improving down the stretch.
Yeah, and we talked in recent weeks about his deep ball, too. That looked good today. He found receiver Charles Johnson for a lengthy strike, and it seems those two kind of have a chemistry. Teddy's getting those balls out, and it's showing up on the field on Sunday.
They really do. I mean, his previous career long was a 52-yarder, and it was a screen pass to Jarius Wright. It was a similar short ball that Jarius took even farther. This time around, he breaks that mark with a 56-yard bomb down to Charles Johnson down the sideline. It was perfectly floated where Charles didn't need to break stride at all. Those are the kind of plays you didn't see him make before, where he was not firing on those before, and now he's hitting those. And if the Vikings can start getting those going, they can win games on offense as opposed to having to rely on their defense like they normally had to.
In fact, just a week ago, Bridgewater missed that deep shot to Johnson where he just overthrew him. Today, hits him. But on the defensive note, Andrew, Zimmer talked after the game about spending so much time and energy this week geared to stopping the Jets' run. I mean, they ran it 47 times against the Miami Dolphins on Monday night. So he expected them to be a run-heavy team. So they had to kind of tweak that a little bit as soon as Percy Harvin started getting involved. And boy, did he have a heck of a day. But what was the biggest thing, in your opinion, that limited the Vikings defense, that they weren't able to have the dominant kind of day they've had in the past?
Well, Harvin had 236 all-purpose yards, including over 100 just in return yardage alone. He was a guy that when he got out in space, he's the normal Harvin you saw at the Metrodome for so many years, a guy that could make anybody miss and get downfield. He had a great adjustment on his touchdown catch on Josh Robinson, where you saw a similar play thrown from Cam Newton here last week, except Josh was in a better position than to get the underneath ball thrown, whereas this time he was so caught up with Percy and his speed that Percy was the one to make the adjustment back to the ball. So it's just those plays where you get beaten, those single coverages, and Mike Zimmer said it after the game. They were so focused on stopping the run, taking away Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson, that you sacrifice those single coverages on the outsides. And you see it sometimes against Chicago or even against Carolina on that 4th down play. When Josh is left in those single coverages, he's getting beat at times, and that happened on Sunday.
Yeah, well, when the Vikings came into the game, it seemed like they were sort of stacking the box, putting 8 guys up there, really geared towards stopping that running attack that you just mentioned. But then once Geno Smith started completing some of those throws, especially to Percy Harvin, did you see the Vikings change up anything did that affect the game plan in any way?
A little fewer blitzes on 1st and 2nd downs. They were trying to sit back a little bit farther and make them get into those 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, those not so manageable 3rd downs. Because when they were sending pressure on 1st downs, Geno could just do a check down to the flat or something like that, and they would get put in those 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3. It's really hard to call a game when you're Mike Zimmer as a defensive, the game caller, the play caller on defense. Really difficult to do that when you're constantly putting 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. So they kind of had to reshift their philosophy there a little bit. They weren't expecting, I think, Geno Smith to throw it as often as he was. He came out firing a little bit, and I believe Geno had 254 passing yards, which is his most since September for him. So he got benched there for a little bit in November, but he came out and played one of his better games as a starter. And if you're the Vikings, that's not good news. You don't want to see that for a guy who was pretty terrible this year.
Yeah, the Vikings secondary certainly has some places to improve. After
I mean, Captain Munderland ended up getting beat a couple times. Got, I think it was 2 pass interference flags on him. Just not a good play from your defensive backs, other than Xavier Rhodes, who had 3 pass deflections, I believe, for the 2nd straight game.
Continues to stand out in the Vikings secondary. Finally, Andrew, let's wrap up with some injury updates. Mike Zimmer said after the game that Robert Blanton would be getting an MRI. That's on his leg. You also talked with Charlie Johnson, who had to leave the game. What's the status there?
Yeah, another Vikings starter going down on the offensive line. It's the 3rd one this season. They got x-rays on his right leg. He was on crutches and in a walking boot, but he said nothing was broken, which is the good news. Although he said it was a pain that he never felt for in his veteran career. So this is something where he's worried about it. He should probably be worried about it because he's been around the league enough. But he's going to get an MRI tomorrow along with Robert Blanton. Defensive tackle Sharif Floyd had to leave the game with a knee injury, the same knee that's been bothering him, I believe, since November 19th. He hurt that in a practice. So now it's been, I believe, 2 games that he's been limited in, 3 games actually, because I think he had to sit out the game after he got hurt. So now it's been 3 straight games he's been limited in. So you see Shamar Stephen, Tom Johnson getting more action because of that. Safety Harrison Smith also had to leave the game briefly with a shoulder injury, but he came right back in. And then as you saw, Anderson Dejo got a forced fumble right at the 2-yard line in spelling for Harrison. So he did a pretty good job in his stead.
And Anthony Barr missed today's game with a knee injury. Gerald Hodges filled in for him. We'll check all those injuries this week at Winter Park. Anybody else to update? I feel like it's a laundry list by this point.
No, we didn't even talk about Matt Khalil or Cordero Patterson.
Amazing.
What's going on?
We might have to get to those guys on the Purple Podcast, at least briefly mention them. That'll do it for this episode, this Vikings video, whatever we're calling it. For Andrew Kramer, I'm Derek Wetmore from TCF Bank Stadium. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.